Hey class, I'm Mr. Thornton. You've got 3 days until May and I'm going to help you succeed in your GCSEs. This lesson, 6-mark questions, and it's the first of 2. We're going to be focusing on the evaluate questions this lesson. This is something which people have been requesting for a long time. And thank you very much if you are one of those people. I'm afraid I don't have time to go through everyone's name, but I really do appreciate all the requests. Now in today's video and tomorrow's video, I'm going to be considering both key types of 6-mark question. So tomorrow I'm going to look at the describe and explain type of questions, but today I'm going to focus on the evaluate type questions. Before I get into that though, there's just 3 quick points which I want to make you aware of when it comes to these 6-mark questions, and these apply to both types of question. Firstly, and most importantly, if the past mock papers that I've marked are anything at all to go by, then the most important thing you can do with any 6-mark question is have a go at it. You would not believe the number of these that I've seen that are left blank. On a 60-mark paper, that's 10% of the marks. That's an entire grade boundary. People who make no attempt at this are just pushing themselves 1 grade lower straight away. So the single most important thing to do is have a go. By all means, leave it, work to the end of the paper and then come back to it and be working on it and trying to fit as much in at the end of the exam, but do make sure that you've had some sort of attempt at it. Secondly, you might be given some information in the question, you might not. If not, then it's going to have to all be coming from your brain. If you are though, then there's the temptation to just re-quote the information. You're not going to get any marks if you are just restating the information which they've given you. What you're always going to need to do is pick out the key important bits of information and explain why those are the important bits. So don't just get tempted to tell them what they've told you. That would be totally pointless. Tell them this is important because. That is going to be crucial anytime you do one of these. Finally, you are marked on spelling, punctuation and grammar, and let me let you into a little secret. No one's going to be bothering too much about whether or not you've got enough commas or apostrophes in there. What they're going to be looking for overall is things like capital letters at the start of sentences, full stops at the end, and that your grammar and punctuation is pretty much okay. That you've not just written one long sentence that's 20 lines long. So, simple, basic grammar rules, the sorts of things which you learnt back when you were in primary school, those are the things which you need to be following. Try to break it up, try to make sure that you are using sentences, and please, for goodness sake, use capital letters and full stops. I shouldn't really need to tell you that, but again, I have seen this on far too many mock papers which I've marked to overlook it. You need to make sure those are in there, otherwise you're just throwing away a really easy mark. So, on to evaluate questions. These are questions where they ask you, of course, to evaluate something, or they might use phrases like compare these two different things, or state the advantages and disadvantages of these two different things. It's anything where you're looking at one possible outcome and another possible outcome, and looking at the good points and bad points between them. That's one of the key types, and you're always going to need in this question to talk about not just the good points but the bad points as well. They may even say draw a conclusion, so you're going to need to say, well, this is the better one, this is the worst one, and this is why I think that. But you need to make sure that you're picking out the crucial points. You are more likely to get a load of text on this one, or some statistics or a graph, and need to make sense of them. You could get this on the other ones as well, on the describe and explain ones, but you are more likely to get them on the evaluate questions, because you're going to have to try and analyse that data and make some sort of sense of it. A lot of teachers will try to second guess what the 6-mark questions might be, and you can do that to an extent, but you really need to take all of that with a pinch of salt. Last year, for example, in the 2015 exam season, a lot of teachers were thinking that the 6-mark question would probably be on the life cycle of a star. I know this because a lot of people were requesting that from me. And I did a big long video all about the life cycle of a star in anticipation of that, and then there was barely anything on the paper about it. There was just 1 or 2 marks on there that were hidden as part of another question. So second guessing it is kind of a fruitless effort. They could talk about all sorts of different topics, pretty much any part of the science which you've been looking at. But what it will do, if it's an evaluate question, is it'll be something that has some sort of wider impact on society. So you're probably going to be focusing on things like environmental science, on uses of plastics, on things which cause pollution, on things which might have some sort of impact on the way we live our lives or how our planet survives. Those tend to be the key ones. So with this type of question, you're going to need advantages and disadvantages. And there are two really good ones which work for an awful lot of them. If you look back at the past paper questions, these two will fit so many of them, it's almost ridiculous. They are, for a start, as an advantage, a positive thing, that it creates jobs. Now this could be talking about limestone mining, it could be talking about using biofuels and farm labourers, it could be talking about producing plastic bags. There are lots of different examples which this will apply to. Jobs are really important. Jobs help drive an economy. So, if there's something which could potentially create jobs, it's not going to put people out of work, it is going to create jobs, then state that. It's one to look out for. And you can say, this is a good thing because it will create jobs. People will have more money because there are more jobs there. That's about all the detail that you need to go into. You just need to have recognised that this thing, whatever it is, will create work for people. A really common disadvantage, based on, again, past papers which I've looked at, and this will fit so many of them, is that it causes some sort of pollution or waste. Now that might be carbon dioxide, which you need to explain is a problem because it's a greenhouse gas and can lead to climate change. It might be plastic waste which is produced, and that's a problem because it's non-biodegradable. So for each of these, again, say what the negative thing is and say why it's a problem. And that applies to all of the positives and negatives for whatever you're talking about. Say what the thing is, that either good or bad point, and then say why. Every time you need to be saying what is the thing that's either good or bad, and saying why. And that's when you're going to start racking up the points quite quickly. All too often when I see these sorts of questions, people will say this is a good thing or this is a bad thing, and they won't give any more explanation. So state clearly, this is why it's good, because it creates jobs, because it reduces pollution. Anything along those sorts of lines, so long as it's relevant to what you're talking about, is going to be a good idea. And then for the negative ones, you say this is a bad thing because, it could be that it's something which removes jobs. Let's say it's automation of the car production industry. That would be a negative thing for anyone who was previously employed building cars, because all of a sudden a robot's going to put them out of work. And you can really go into that sort of detail about it, just saying, well, this is a bad thing because, and don't worry about saying something like a robot would put people out of work. That would be fine. So long as you're making that connection, you're saying bad thing because. Get those two things in there and you will be getting the marks. Try and get at least 3 examples of things which are either good or bad, and then explain why they're good or bad. Try and get at least one of each as well. There is always going to be a minimum of 1 positive thing and 1 negative thing in this type of question. So make sure that you've got at least one of each and you've explained why they are a positive or a negative thing. Explain what that impact is going to be. Now, if you're doing that, then that ought to be getting you 3 or probably 4 marks out of your 6 marks. If you're getting another one in there as well, then that could quite easily take you up to 6, so long as your spelling, punctuation and grammar is okay. And if you've got an opinion on this, then don't be afraid to state that opinion. If you don't have an opinion, it doesn't matter, just pick one option. That's fine. Say, I think this is the better option because I think it's more important that people have jobs than to worry about the pollution which may be caused. I think that's a lesser problem. So long as you've said what those problems are, it's fine. Even if you don't believe what you've written, no one is going to come back to you in 20 years with that exam paper and say, well, this thing which you said here is something which you've disagreed, now you're president of the world. No one's going to worry about that, trust me. Out of the two types of 6-mark question, personally, I think the evaluate ones are the easiest because they're always looking for the same thing. Again, one more time, and I really want to labour this point. You need to make what your point is, and then you need to explain that. It's a little bit like in English where you have PEE. That is point, evidence, explanation. If you're following that, and if you've got at least one good one, one bad one, and one other one, you ought to be a solid 5 or maybe even 6 marks on this. It doesn't matter if you don't get all 6 marks though. Don't worry about that. A lot of time people look at that huge question sheet and go, that's a lot of room, I feel like I've got to fill it, and just leave it blank. Any marks at all that you're getting, any work at all that you're doing is a good step in the right direction. So have a go. Even if you can only think of one good thing and the reason why it's good, write that down. That could at least get you 2 marks. Remember, you might be 1 mark away from the next grade. So anything which you can put down, even a single sentence, is always going to be better than nothing on these questions. I hope that video really helped you. If it did, it really helps my channel when you like, subscribe and share these videos. Let people know I'm going to succeed in my GCSE. All the links and info for this video are in the description, and please let me know what you thought in the comments or on Twitter at Mr. Thornton UK, or use the hashtag #SucceedInMyGCSE. There are loads more GCSE Science videos on my channel too. Here's another one which YouTube thinks you might find useful. You can click my picture just here to subscribe, click down there to check how well you understood with the Snap Quiz website and app, and you can click just here to get my revision guides. Good luck in your GCSEs everyone, and thanks very much for watching.